everyone, and welcome to Global Outlook. I'm Mary Sitt. Author J.L. Clark has just published novel number 2 in the fascinating trilogy, The Avalon Relics. Book 2 is entitled The Avalon Relics, Lailan Crown. J.L. Clark is the pen name for Dr. Jennifer Yen Clark, who practices psychiatry by day and writes novels by night. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me again, Mary.
So congratulations on coming out with your second book.
Thank you.
Lailan Crown. Set up the whole scene for me. And it's a trilogy, so what happened in the first book and who was the main character?
Sure. Well, the first book is actually entitled Lilithlings.
Okay.
And so the Avalon Relics itself is a young adult fantasy series that follows 17-year-old Sophia Bennett, who is our protagonist, as she kind of tries to transition out of high school and gets prepared to go off to college. On her 18th birthday, right before she goes there, she has a party thrown by her best friend Angie, and that morning receives a pair of bracelets that she believes are family heirlooms from her mom. She heads off to the party, is having a good time, and then suddenly a series of events occur, and she finds herself rescued by 3 strangers that she just met. And she's told that the bracelets that she has on her arms are in fact sacred relics belonging to a race of half fairy, half human creatures called the Fayeds.
That's a whole world you're creating right there. Now, does she think she's one of the Fayeds?
Well, she comes to find out that certainly being in possession of those sacred relics could indicate that she really is one of them, but she has to find out for herself if that's really true and what that means for her, her family, and who she thinks she is.
So what kind of magical powers do fairies have?
Well, they have quite a few, some of which are things like teleportation. They do have the ability to mesmerize, which is to convince people that they are thinking certain ways or saying certain things or certain things have happened.
Okay.
Other things they can do is they do have healing powers that allow them to heal injuries and sometimes even bring people from the brink of death.
Wow. I'd want to be half fairy.
I know. They're also very, very, very attractive, so that doesn't hurt.
Okay, so book 2, tell me what happens in book 2 without giving it away.
Sure. In book 2, you're actually following Sophia as she travels to the realm named Avalon and finds herself facing her possible new family.
Is she traveling there to try to discover if she's half fairy and half human?
She's been summoned by a council of elders who are the ones who are the guardians of the realm and also are the governing body.
Okay, so when she does this stuff and she travels in this sort of fantasy world, what's happening in real life, like back at home with mom and dad?
Well, life continues to move forward, but the Fayeds have had placed an enchantment upon her family and her close friends so that they aren't even aware that she exists in the moment, so that she's able to travel away from the realm. And
they don't realize she's gone?
No, no. Oh. They go on and move on and live life as if she had never existed.
Okay, so where do you get these ideas? This is fascinating. I know you're a child and young adult psychiatrist.
I am.
Do you use your case studies to help, inspire you to write the novels?
Well, I think it definitely does allow me to pull from real people and stories that I hear about and situations that I incorporate into the characters, the real struggles, the real conflicts, and also some of the character traits that are quirky and unique about them. But I think the reality is that I am always thinking about the next great story. I draw from everything around me, whether it's strange conversations I have with my friends or seeing a really particularly amazing sunset or a landscape that I just really feel like just is magical in its own way.
And you were saying earlier that you do a lot of observations to help give you ideas for your novel, but that's the same thing that you do as a doctor. You have to observe the patient, the body language. You're a psychiatrist, so you talk a lot and you observe how they're answering the question, is that right? So you find that same skill in both fields?
Most definitely, and I think I may have started honing that skill as a writer before I even consciously knew I was going to be a psychiatrist.
You have a passion for both.
I do, very much so. I think that psychiatry is someplace where my heart is because I know there's a lot of mental health disparity in child and adolescent psychiatry, and particularly with Asian Americans in general. It's very hard to find a psychiatrist or even any mental health provider that's Asian American that can bridge the gap, because many times Asian Americans are fearful and immigrants are fearful of approaching a mental health professional and don't even know where to go.
And a lot of times I think in the Asian culture, people don't even want to talk about mental illnesses. That's not discussed, right? Whereas in the Western culture, people are a lot more open, you know, the Woody Allen thing where you just spill everything out all over, right? But in the Asian culture, you just keep it quiet. If you have a mental issue, you just don't talk about it.
That's correct.
Which probably isn't really healthy.
It's not, and I do a lot of psychoeducation on the stigma, on actually the biological causes for mental illness, and really letting them know and pushing the idea of this is not an issue of character weakness, this is not an issue of doing something right or doing something wrong, especially with my parents, because the parents bring the kids in thinking that they've made a mistake somehow, they didn't discipline their child correctly, or they haven't provided something for their child. So it's always a very important thing for me to say and to let them know, to acknowledge their concerns, to acknowledge their fears, but also to allay them by explaining that there are biological reasons for why their children are struggling.
So you treat the whole family then?
I do.
Now, in your book, does she have any of these neuroses?
Of course, she's a teenage girl, right? I mean, she's going to go through a lot of insecurities about herself. You're talking about a girl who's now going to a realm that she never knew existed and meeting a family she's never known, who are claiming her as their own. On top of that, you know, she has a love triangle. She has to deal with the society expectations of her because they're telling her that she's this long prophesized, you know, electist or chosen one. And she has to deal with the fallout and the implications of whether or not she can live up to those expectations.
This sounds like a TV series or a movie.
Maybe one day, yeah.
So you've gotten reviews from all sorts of young ladies, right? From ages 9 years old, you said, or 12? Up to 13?
And up to adult age, actually. I have a lot of adult readers who just really enjoy good, well-written young adult books, and I've gotten great feedback from them as well.
So what did your youngest reviewer?
I actually have a precocious 9-year-old who wrote me a very, very sweet letter, and I had a chance to meet her, take a picture, and actually get the letter from her directly.
And what did she say?
Well, let me take a look. So she wrote, "Dear Mrs. Jennifer, my cousin and I love your books. They are so amazing. I really enjoyed the book. My friends, parentheses classmates, think I'm crazy for reading such a big book, but who cares? It's so surprising. I can't wait until the next books are out."
Very good. And I also read online of someone who said your book combines everything. It has mystery, romance, suspense, all of that in there, and a good plot.
That's what I was hoping for.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you.
And we look forward to the third book. When is that going to be out?
Well, I'm hoping sometime this year. I don't have a clear idea yet, but it will be entitled Amulet of Morgana.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So J.L. Clark, look that up and you can find all the books. That's all for this edition of Global Outlook. Check us out every Friday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. plus Saturday at 10 a.m. I'm Mary Sitt. Thanks for joining us.